Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second Wednesday episode of Rosie Speaks. I have His Majesty Bela of the Outlands with me. How are you doing today, Your Majesty?
Doing fabulous. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I have this whole little recording space, and I try to keep it so that it's relatively quiet. But I have a 9-week-old, or I guess now 10-week-old puppy who doesn't care at all, and has decided that he needs to sit on my lap. So he is going to be interrupting us at some point. Uh, hope that's totally fine.
That's totally fine. That's what puppies do. That's what they're for, right?
Yes, that's exactly what they're for. Just interrupting the monotony. And boy, has he done that. Motorcycles that just decided to go by. All right, that'll lead me into my first question. So you are currently the king of the Outlands, and we're in a little bit of a strange time right now with the global pandemic going on. My first question is, what is the most positive and heartwarming moment that you have had at being a reigning king during a plague?
Ooh, that's a good question. I guess the biggest thing is the amount of people within my kingdom and without my kingdom, from around the known world who have reached out to me personally and to my queen to check on us and to tell us, that they think we're doing a good job. And it's a crazy time. It's sometimes you feel like you're the king of Facebook and not, the king of the Outlands, which makes it difficult. But you do the best you can. We look for ways where we can reach out and encourage people to find means of communication like this. Classes, a lot of arts and sciences classes have been happening through the internet, and a lot of coaching and teaching for heavy fighters and rapier fighters has been taking place, and that stuff has been amazing to see. But yeah, it's tough, and we miss being able to be at events and be with our friends. It's just not the same.
Of course, there's no substitute for being in person, but it's definitely been wonderful to see how we as a society are kind of coming together and interacting in whatever way we can. So I agree it's very cool to see how people are interacting now. My next question is from is what is your favorite Great Western War memory?
Oh man, there's a bunch. So I guess personally, a personal thing for me, and what is my favorite Great Western War memory. A few years ago, Count Franbald of Aidenvelt was elevated to the Order of the Chivalry there, and he's a good friend of mine, and it was really amazing to get to watch him, his ceremony, and see him be elevated, and that was a great day for a lot of us. But I was very much blown away and taken aback because immediately after his ceremony, his former knight, Duke Guy of Castle Kirk, and his lady, her Grace Starla, pulled me aside, and Duke Guy gifted me with one of his helmets. And Guy has been one of my heroes for a long time, and so I always coveted one of those and never thought I would be worthy of one. So having him pull me aside and give me one is something I'll never forget.
I didn't know that Guy was Frambald's knight. That's super cool. I've known Guy. I lived in Caid my whole life, so I've known Guy for that amount of time, and um, I love how far-reaching his connections are, and his helmets are beautiful. So that is a really good moment. I think that we were at me and my partner Brienne got to meet the um, the good people of Acer at West on Tier, maybe. Um, and it was super cool because they got to talking, and he now has his dream helm. So
That's awesome.
I love dream helm stories. Those are all super great.
For sure.
And funny enough, speaking of dream decorations, if you could have any coronet, if you could design your dream coronet for you personally, what would it look like?
See, I don't have one. I rarely. I mean, I have a very basic coronet that Master Tiernan from Maiden Belt made for me. It's very simple. It's barely an inch tall, stainless steel with 4 brass strawberry leaves on it, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. But really, the only time I wear a coronet of any kind is when I'm king. Most of the times when I'm not, I don't typically wear my ducal coronet. So I don't think there is a perfect one for that reason.
Is there any reason, just because, or is it just a personal preference?
It's mostly personal preference. Um, you wear these long enough, they start giving you headaches, and so I don't like that kind of compression headache to begin with. And then it's also kind of in my way of being, on my viewpoint of things, the crown and the landed nobles are the ones that should wear them all the time. I think my personal preference is I wear mine at coronations. I wear mine at big occasions. Other than that, I don't really wear it because I don't think, number one, I need to, and I don't think it's necessarily right that I do. I think it's hard for new people to know who everybody is as a new person in the society, like who you should bow to, and all the titles and all those types of things. Makes it really stressful for newer people. So I just, I introduce myself as Bela. I don't usually introduce myself with a title, typically, just because I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. And that's also a lot of why I don't wear my coronet all the time.
I actually really like that concept. A bunch of the questions that I have been seeing answered in videos like this are the like talking about the peer non-peer dynamic, and I think that that's a very interesting way to become approachable, is to just be yourself. And while I don't necessarily think that like wearing a coronet matters one way or the other if you're not sitting royal or baronial position, um, I think that like it could be, I could go either way. But again, I'm a really bad judge of character because I've been doing this for so long. But I think that that's a really interesting concept, to only wear the crown or coronet when you've won or been chosen for that particular position or title. That's a really cool. Ooh, I have things to think
It's also
about
a
now.
lot. It's also a lot easier for me because it's one less thing I have to deal with or worry about. So makes it simpler for me too.
Especially like in a kingdom such as the Outlands, where it's so long. Like traveling with a coronet, as somebody who has traveled with our Kingdom of Kaid coronets in their car, I know what a pain in the behind it can be. So doing that on like with your own stuff for every event seems like a lot of work. So I understand. Plus, my partner is a fighter, and I have enough armor in my car. We don't need more things. We're good. That's definitely
Yeah, exactly.
the truth. So that's a really cool concept, though. That's going to actually, speaking of new people, this question I borrowed from Between Two Peers, which is done by Sir Helga and Mistress Tulia. And one of the questions is from Steph Holt, and it says, what draws you to a new person to help them along their way of their dream? So like, what draws you to a new fighter or a new whatever to help you teach them
Um,
personally?
Really, the biggest thing is just their desire to learn and their desire to want to get better. I've been doing this for 30 years, and so I tend to get jaded, and I tend to have set viewpoint on things. And helping new people allows me to revisit what it is that's magical about the society. You know, I get to see all of those new things through their eyes, and to as a fighter, you know, I've won all the tournaments I wanted to win, all those types of things. There's not really anything else I can do as a fighter that's going to make me happy. But if I can teach a new guy a particular combination or a way of doing things, and then watch him go out on the field and beat up a knight or a duke with that thing, that makes me really happy.
That's really cool. I think that people who are interested, hold on, excuse me for 2 seconds. Are you done? All right, he's fine. He's doing whatever he's doing. I think that people being willing to learn is it's something that new people need to also notice. So like not the brand new people, but like the people who have been in a year or so who are still maybe, what are you? Sorry, he's like licking my like shoulder and my back. Apologize, excuse my dog. Okay, where was I? Not like brand new people, but people who've been in for I would say like one, maybe as much as like 2 years, who are understanding of like the concepts of who people are and what positions are what, and what ANS is versus what like the different kinds of arts and sciences and the different kinds of fighting, but aren't sure who to talk to. Just be interested. And I think that humans trip over themselves in our interactivity with people. So I like that. That's a good thing for that. I like that is something that you look for.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And then this question from Sir Helga. Beyond prowess, what virtue do you feel should be a knight's focus?
So for this, my answer on this, it really varies on the day, but more often than not, I come back to temperance, because if you focus on any one thing, whether it's prowess or largesse or humility, you can go too far. And so I think in all things that you do, you need to use temperance and tone it down a little, and not just focus on that one thing. So in all things, temperance, I guess, would be the big thing for me.
So that's the first time I've asked a question about the knightly virtues on my show. I try not to conflict with Logan out of the West show Ask the Knights. So for some of us who maybe don't know what all of the knightly virtues are, what are they specifically? Or is it like the same across the society, like an overarching like 7 deadly sins type thing?
It's really personal to each knight. There are knights that have 7 virtues. There are knights that have 13. There are knights that have 14. So it really depends on each individual knight. If you ask my former squire, Sir Gabriel, he'll tell you there's only 2 virtues, chivalry and prowess, which makes no sense whatsoever, but he's convinced. So yeah, it's a personal to each knight, and I'm sure each knight has their viewpoint on what are important to them, and they try to pass that on to their squires, and whether it sticks or not, that's to be debated.
I didn't know that. So Brienne currently does not have a knight. So he is not a squire. So he has like a whole bunch of mentors and people who he would consider to be like very close teachers to him. But the knight that he had prior to this, it was a very interesting like dynamic. It was definitely best that they separated like in the end, but there was never any talk of like, ooh, hold on, I sound like an alien. 2 seconds. Okay, cool. I no longer sound like an alien. There was never any talk about the virtues. So I always, but I have lots of friends out of kingdom and they talk about the knightly virtues. So I was wondering if it's just maybe not a Caiden thing or it's just not a thing that I have experienced in Caiden.
I think it just depends on where you're at. I know culturally in the Outlands, there used to be um, around the fire at events on a certain night, we would have virtue discussions. People would host them at their house and invite people over, and we'd have a philosophy night discussing a specific virtue and things like that. And I know Calin Elardi's done that, and I know it's been done in Artemisia and Eight Belt some. So I think it's out there and it's prevalent, but I think it's like everything else in the society, it ebbs and flows. It'll be really popular for a while, and then it'll kind of wane off, and less people are doing it, and then more people get interested and excited in it, and it comes back. So
that's so funny. So early in an earlier episode I did with Larissa, Viscountess Larissa, and she was telling me the same thing about how it's sort of like things, just traditions come and go. There'll be like sometimes when the traditions are really high and like really valued, and other times when it's just like meh, and then it just kind of comes and goes. So I think that's super interesting.
And that's also kingdom specific.
Mm-hmm.
Some kingdoms are very more written word, coded law. Some kingdoms are more tradition based. So it just depends on where you're at.
Yeah, I agree. I think that and it really does also depend on like the facets, like different paths that you're on, where tradition is more stringent than it is like other places. And speaking of tradition, what is your favorite tradition that is Outlands specific? And then what is the strangest or most interesting Outlands tradition?
So the two that I think are the coolest, we have a unbroken line of kings crowning the next king, which I know it's not unique to us, but it's very important to us. The outgoing king always crowns the new king. But part of that, and this is, I haven't seen this anywhere else, it's mostly Outlands specific, is at the point in the coronation ceremony when the king removes the crown from the queen, the outgoing queen, all of the ladies of the rose will take their coronets off at that point. And then when the king takes the crown off to crown the new king, everyone else will take any coronet that they have, and they'll take it off until the new king is crowned, and then everyone will put them back on.
That's a good one. I think that Caid has that with when the king takes off his crown to crown the next king. But funny enough, I was just talking about this earlier in this week in one of my other recordings about how we have like an intermission between, like, it's like the king takes the crown off and it's like pause and then people go do their thing and get ready for the next king and queen get ready and have everything organized, and then they go through and it's like play, and then it's like shoop. But that's really funny. That's a really interesting, like, completely unbroken chain of king to king changes. Yeah. That's really cool. One of my favorite Caiden traditions, and I don't know, I have only been to one other kingdom's elevations, and it was the West. But Caid sometimes will do a sheath of swords around Unbelt, or around a new knight, and I love that. That is super powerful. The first time I saw that was Viscount Ulf when he was knighted. And that was a whole big thing for me because him and I grew up together. So watching him from doing youth combat with him to becoming a knight and then becoming a prince, it was a whole process. It was awesome.
Very cool. I don't know why it was that sparked that, but another one that you reminded me of that's Outland specific that I really, really love is the Outlands has a history of a lot of queens that do Middle Eastern dance. But it's tradition that when the queen is dancing, she doesn't wear the crown. And it's more done so that, if she happens to dance within 10 feet of the drummers, they don't have to stop and stand up and things like that. But it's also a sign of everyone being equal on the dance floor. And so it's very important to our queens and the ladies that have served as queen in the Outlands to carry that tradition and to not wear their crown onto the dance floor.
That's so cool. I've never heard, that is definitely unique to the Outlands. I've never heard of something like that. So that's so interesting. And I love the concept of like, well, at this point in time, we're all still doing the same thing, so might as well all be equal. I love that. I'm also a sucker for art of any kind. So being like the idea of I'm not going to disrupt a musician, that's super heartwarming to me. Like that's cool. I love that. Let me think. Do I have? How do I? Ooh. Are you ready for some fun questions?
Sure.
So, first question: what is your opinion on Star Wars Episode 1 through 3?
It's Star Wars, therefore it's awesome.
So I like to blend a little bit of modern mundane life in with my episodes, and I sent a message to Sir Helga this morning, and I was like, I need something that I can talk about. So I have Star Wars questions in my backlog, and that's one of my Star Wars questions from Her Highness of the Mists. Is do you have a preference of 1 through 3, or whatever the other 3 ones?
Obviously, the original trilogy will always be my favorite because I was a kid when it came out, and that's what spurred me to love that world and that universe. The 1 through 3 prequels came out at a time when my daughters were young, so for them that was their thing. So I got to experience it through them as well. Everyone hates Jar Jar Binks, and whatever. It's a character. I'd much rather spend 2 hours watching a Star Wars movie than watching reality TV any day of the week. So,
so I also agree with it's Star Wars, so it's all cool. A lot of people have very strong opinions on episodes 1 through 3, but I also was a kid when those came out. So while I saw the original movies before those came out, those were like, oh, those are old movies. I don't want to watch that. And then I watched episodes 1 through 3, and I was like, oh wait, I get it now. And then I got all oriented. So I love that. It's just Star Wars. It's fun. I like it. But yeah, I would also like to watch Star Wars for 2 hours rather than reality TV, because I don't need my brain to melt. It's already hard enough. All right. So then this next question is the one that Sir Helga asks. Who is your favorite Star Wars character? Why?
So forever it was Boba Fett, but now I have to go with the Mandalorian from the Mandalorian series, because number one, he's a Mandalorian and they're badass, and number two, I just think the way he carries himself, there's a definite code of right and wrong, almost like a chivalric code that he follows. You might not agree with it, you might not understand it, but it very much dictates how he runs his life, and that very much speaks to me, and I really love what they've done with that show and with that character in particular.
So we're gonna go off on a Mandalorian tangent real fast.
Okay.
So that show has been the talk of a whole bunch of people and everyone for the last since it came out. And in my specific friend group, all of us play SEA. Some of us are vying to become knights. Some of us are hanging out. We have a whole blend of, we span the spectrum of SEA play. And the discussion of, is the Mandalorian, how would you compare the Mandalorian and their values to the Knights of the SEA and their values? And it becomes this whole kind of conflagration of what is a Western cowboy versus what is a knight. And so I'm going to ask you, would you compare the Mandalorian his values to knights of our society and their
values? I would. I also think the Mandalorians in particular are a great example of inclusivity. They will take anyone who's willing to follow their code. As long as you are willing to live your life by that code, and as long as you are willing to be a part of their tribe, then you're included. Where you come from, how rich you are, how much money, none of that stuff matters. What matters is, will you follow the code? And to me, that's kind of what the Shiv circle is. There's all kinds of people that are in that order from all different walks of life. Some had an easier way to get there, some had a much harder way to get there, but they're all accepted because they're willing to follow the code.
I think that is a super interesting concept of, especially for people who are who are in their mid to late 20s in the SEA, who are the people who are watching The Mandalorian, who maybe aren't as involved in the politics of what chivalry, of what the Pels, the Laurels, whatever, all those are, having something, God, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a pop culture reference. Mm-hmm. I think that makes it super interesting because the Mandalorians do embody a value. They have a code and they have their ways, and they will take in stray orphans. They will take in people who wander in, people who want to be there. They will just take everybody in. So the inclusivity factor is very strong with the Mandalorian. And I think that us as a society are working towards that. And it's super cool to have a pop culture icon that is sort of inspiring the move, the push, and the completion of the SEA becoming a very inclusive organization is the word I'm going to go with. And then on that note, very serious, super important question. Cats or dogs?
Dogs, all day, every day.
Do you have any dogs now?
I have a dog. He doesn't live with me at the moment, but I do have a dog.
So what is his name now? Or what is his in the moment, what is his name?
Professor.
If you could rename him, what would you rename him?
I wouldn't.
He's a professor?
Yeah. His full name is Professor Cerberus.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a good name for him.
That's a good name. I agree. All right. So now that Professor Cerberus has lived up to his name, I would like to know. So when I first met you, it was 2 rains ago, I think. And your hair was not pink. However, now your hair is pink, and my hair is pink. So I need to know, why is your hair pink?
Well, let's see. My hair is pink because I reached a point in my life where I felt a bit lost. I felt like I didn't really know who I was anymore. And for a very long time, I had a mohawk that all my hair was the same length that went down to my butt. And that was kind of what I was known for. And I hadn't had that hairstyle for a long time. And I knew I was going to start growing my hair back out and shave it back into a mohawk. And I wanted to dye it some color. I had dyed my hair green before, I had dyed it blue before, and neither one of those lasted very long. They washed out pretty quickly. I liked how it looked, but I wanted something that I wouldn't see everywhere. Like you go around town and you'll see red hair, you'll see purple hair, you'll see blue hair. You don't often see pink. So I just figured I'd go with pink this time, and it stuck.
Well, I think it suits you. I like it. But I'm biased because I have raspberry colored hair. And funny enough, you might be my last video with my raspberry hair. I have, because of COVID and the plague and all the other things, I am looking for new work. And while I could teach with my raspberry hair, office managers don't usually have raspberry hair, so I have to conform to the job app market for the next at least 6 months until they hire me. And it's very sad because I love my raspberry hair. But no, it's very funny because I've had different flavors of red hair since, holy moly, for the past decade. And it just doesn't come out. Like one time I dyed my hair the actual color of a fire engine, and I've never been able to not have red hair since. So we're gonna see if we can get it out this time. My pelican is a hairdresser. She's got some mad skills, so we're gonna see.
She's very good at what she does. That is true.
She is in fact very good at what she does. So are you gonna stick with a pink, or are you gonna try something different?
It's gonna stay pink for a while. I just redid it today, actually.
That's so perfect.
My roots were getting a little long.
I have no idea what that means. Ugh, it's totally fine. It's different to dye your length of hair versus my length of hair. And when it's not tied up in this knot, it goes to my ass area. Yeah. And it's a pain in the ass to dye. All right, so we actually busted through our questions, and we have our last question.
All right.
What advice would you give to a couple who just won Crown or Coronet for the very first
time? The three biggest things I would tell that couple is, number one, you can't say thank you enough to anyone that does anything for you. If even when you start feeling like you've said thank you too much, say it 3 more times. Number one. Number two, don't make any decisions without talking to your significant other, or that goes for whether you're a significant other or not, whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship. Don't make any decisions without the other half of the crown being there, or at least knowing about it. The third one is, if you publish a time for a court or a meeting or something to start, don't be late.
All of those are wonderful pieces of advice. Your Majesty, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a wonderful time. I am so happy that you had time to join me. I hope that your reign, although interesting and unorthodox, has been pleasant, and you are still having fun as king and in your own right as well.
Yeah, I'm having a great time. It's been weird and unique, but it's been a very fun reign, and my queen is awesome. So that's made it just that much more fun watching her be queen.
Is this her first time?
Yes, it's her first reign.
And I'm sorry, what is her name again?
Nerissa della Badessa.
Nerissa, that's right. Well, I wish you two both the best. And I have to catch my dog from falling off the couch. Thank you so much again. I had a wonderful time talking with you, talking about Star Wars, talking about your hair, pink, coronets. It's been a wonderful time. Thank you so much, Your Majesty. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too.